Good morning. I think we can get started. The reason why I didn't want to get started early is because once I start class, I don't like people joining in and requesting me to ask them asking me to join in the background. That's why I prefer you join on time so that we don't get started. Then you're joining much later. You distract the rest of the class. Nevertheless, I think we can carry over from where we left off last time. I think we were discussing the Expedia. We were discussing the Expedia um, flight booking application. As I said, we were primarily focusing on the flight side only and nothing more than that. I don't know if the class rep can take over the responsibility for admitting the rest so that I don't get distracted as we move along. So, as I said, on Monday, we started looking at the Expedia database application rather. We came up with some entities. Then we also saw how we can be able to put up these entities together. Then I think I also went ahead and um, generated um, a flight booking, a flight booking ERD, which I want us to implement today. So, well, these ones who are coming late now they're going to distract me a lot. This is what I didn't want. Okay, nonetheless, I don't know. Maybe if you can, there's another one. Okay. Class rep, are you able to admit? Is there anybody in the meeting who can be able to admit the ones who are waiting, or I'm the one who have to admit them? Okay, let me admit these ones. I'm hoping that's the last one. So we have our database schema. I think let me try to open it with Paint. I think I saved it in my documents. I just want to refer to it as we are designing. I want to refer to it as we are designing so that you see how we put it together. Should be under documents. I want to believe maybe by type. And I go to, I can't remember what I called it. I called it something like schema or something. Did I call it? Okay, I can remember the database. So not a big deal, but it would have been good if I was able to review it so that now we could just be able to see what we were looking at last time. Okay, I can't review it from here, and I can still feel that some people coming up in the background. I wish you'd come in all of you together so that you don't disrupt us once we get started. Now, we are going to use MySQL for the design of this database for the Expedia. So MySQL has a lot of user interfaces. So the prerequisite for this particular activity is you need to have the following installed. So I'll open Notepad over here and I'll give us the prerequisites. So for you to effectively run these effectively, you need to have XAMPP installed. Now you might not necessarily install XAMPP, but you can install Apache, MySQL, and PHP separately. So regardless of whether you're going to install XAMPP or MAMP or WAMP, So you can install XAMPP, MAMP, or WAMP, or you can install Apache separately, MySQL separately, and PHP separately. Of course, if you install XAMPP, if you're using Windows, it will install all of them for you. Okay, so you don't need to do anything. Then once you install it, just make sure that you open the XAMPP control panel here. And once you open the XAMPP control panel, you can run it as administrator. Then just make sure that both Apache and MySQL are running. So you can see they are running, they are green, and I've installed them as a service. So it means that every time I restart my computer, they start on their own. Okay, so that's the best part. So every time I restart my computer, they just start on their own. But in your case, if you install it and you don't install it as a service, then every time you restart your computer, you have to come here and say start, then start again. Then it will be able to start. So that's the only way you're going to be able to work with this. Now, the other requirement you need to have, of course, once you install XAMPP, it will also include phpMyAdmin, which is a user interface that allows you to be able to access MySQL databases. But you can also install MySQL clients separately. So MySQL clients. So you can install MySQL clients separately because phpMyAdmin is not very user friendly when it comes to creating things like tables, relationships, and things like that. Even though you can still be able to run commands and access your database and create databases and do all kind of stuff, but I prefer use something else. In my case, I'm using a commercial application here called SQL So you can use SQL you can use MySQL Workbench, and so forth and so forth. Any MySQL client tool that you feel is going to be useful for you. By the way, this is free. Workbench is free, but this one is commercial. You can still get a community version which does not have a lot of features, but the one I have is actually a commercial version. So once you install your server with Apache, MySQL, PHP, then you also need a MySQL client, which will allow you to easily manage and manipulate the databases. So those are the only prerequisites that I require for this particular class to be able to be effective. So we already know how our database looks like. We have the entities. So let's see how we can create a few entities and how we can be able to manage the details for those entities in terms of creating data and also in terms of querying data from those databases. Then from there, you can go ahead and expound on your larger data set that you have. So what I'm going to do is I'll just close this yog. I'll close it. Then I'll open it. By the way, if I come to a browser, if once you install XAMPP and you come to the browser, then just say localhost without anything, it will bring you to this window over here. So XAMPP is installed. So once XAMPP is installed, just come to phpMyAdmin. Then from phpMyAdmin, you can be able to manage and create your databases. As I've said, it's a tool that you can use, but it's not the best. It's not the most user friendly amongst them all, but it is usable. So once you get into database, it will simply allow you to create databases, create queries, and do all these kind of things. I don't know why it's taking too long. Probably maybe it's because I'm running a lot of things in the background, but nonetheless, let it come. Okay, it's here. You can see it's redirecting me to phpMyAdmin, and from here you can see I have a whole lot of these databases. So I can come and here and create a new database, and I call it Expedia. So once I come and create Expedia becomes part of my databases, and I can do other things like Expedia is here, as you can see. So when I expand Expedia, I can go ahead and create tables and do all sorts of things. Right now it's blank, it doesn't have anything. That's why you're seeing it behaves like that. But of course, I can come here and create a table. Like for example, I can just create one table called countries. Countries has three columns. Actually, the country code, the ID, and the country name. So there are two. So I create like that. I'll have somebody in the background waiting to join. Let me see. So once I come here, countries, I want to create a table. So the name will be country ID. I'm just showing how to use it, but I'm not going to use this tool to create my database. So country ID and country name. So country ID will be integer, country name will be variable character. You can give it a precision of maybe say 100 characters. Then the country ID is going to be a primary key auto increment like that. Of course, you can see it's a primary key here. Then this other one is going to retain that, doesn't have a default value. So once I'm done with that, I'll save it. So you can see the user interface is not very friendly, but at the end of the day, I have, once I come to my Expedia, I have now one table called countries, and it doesn't have any data, but you get the general idea. So I'll just use SQL Yog for this. So I'll simply come to, I can come here and drop this database. So I'll drop it. The database itself, it should be operations. Then drop database here. That will delete it permanently because I want to recreate it on the other side. But you can use that tool as I have mentioned. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to run SQL Yog here. You can run Workbench, you can run any MySQL client that you want to use. So in my case, I'm just going to use this connection. I'm running localhost. The username is root with a blank password, and that's the default port for MySQL. I want to open up the databases, so I just say connect. So that way it will connect and give me all the databases I have here. Don't worry about the amount of databases I have. They are quite a lot, but we're just going to focus on creating a new database. I'll create a new database by right clicking, then say create database. Then I'll call it Expedia flight booking. Or I can call it flight booking. So let me call it Expedia flight booking. So I have it here. So you can see I have no tables, no views, no sort procedures, no function, nothing. So it's blank technically. So from here, I want us to go ahead and start creating a few elements. Then we see how this works out. Now, these people are coming to class late. Please, if you want to come late, I don't know how you're going to go it around this, but just be mindful of the others so that you're also not interfering with the class very, very often. So to create a new table, I'll right click tables here and say create new table. You can see this is a much, much more user-friendly way to create a table. The table here is countries. That's one of them. And it has country ID and it has country name like that. Then the right type of this one is integer. This one is variable character. You can see this one is a much nicer way. This is the primary key and it's also auto increment. Then I'll click on save. Once I save, okay, I must specify the length of the varchar. It's 100. So I'll say save. Then it'll ask me, do I want to create more tables? Yes, I want to create another table for cities, right? So for cities, I have city ID. Well, I could just say ID, but I think city ID is good. So city name, then country ID. All right. So city ID is integer. It is the primary key, and it's auto increment. Country ID is also integer, and city name is variable character, 50 in 100 in length. Then what I need to do is I need to specify that this country ID relates with these countries here. So when I come to this table, I'll come to foreign keys here. So you can see now why now something like SQL Yog is a better tool because it can allow me to create the relationships that. But I can create the relationships from here, or I can simply go to the schema tool, then create the schema from there. But usually when I create the table, I like to infer the relationships upfront. So I already have this country ID. I need to relate to this table called countries on this country ID. So I'll simply come to foreign keys over here. Then I'll say the referencing column is country ID. And I want to reference the table called countries. And you can see automatically it has picked for me country ID because that's the primary key. Then I'll click on save. So once I do that, it'll ask me, do I want to create other tables? Yes, I want to create more tables. So now I want to create airports. Right? So for airports, I have airport ID. I have airport code and airport name. And of course, I have the city ID where it comes from the city where it belongs, right? So this is integer. It's primary key and it's auto increment. This code is variable character, maybe three because we said there are three. I mean NBO, KSM, MSA, the likes. Then airport name can be variable character, maybe say 100 characters long, and the city ID is going to be integer. So I'm not going to use this one to create that relationship so that I show you how to use the schema tool. So when I come to this city, once I've created this and I've saved it, I don't want to create more. So let me assume I'm going to create those three. Of course, you're going to create all the other tables that you have in your schema, which most of you have not shared as yet, and that's a problem. So now what I'm going to do is, since I already have the three tables, or maybe I can have all my tables listed over here. So I can have my airlines, I can have my flights, I can have my flight supply, and all those tables that we created. So once you create all of them, you can come to schema diagram over here, then say add tables, and you'll see I'll be given all the tables that I have on my database. Then I say add. So up front, you can see automatically for cities and countries, I already created the relationship. And as you can see, the relationship is already listed for me. It's a one to many. So one country can have as many cities as possible. Okay. So that city ID, I misspelled it. So I can come back to cities, um, alter the table, then come to columns. This should be city ID, city with a Y. Yeah, people make mistakes, then I'll save that. Of course, I'm expecting that airport here should have city ID, which is correctly spelled. So when I come to my diagram here and I refresh, you'll be able to see that this has actually now corrected. So this is how now you're going to create the relationship. So once I have this, similar to the schema tool that you're doing, just drag and drop the columns where you want them, want to have them. So here, for example, I want this city ID to relate to this city ID over here. Now, when you're creating relationship, one thing you need to be careful about is that the relationship, the data types must be the same. So once I have that and I click on save, it should be able to save. Well, it's one to one. I don't know why that is the case. It should be one to many. So let me just remove that. Then I'll click from here to this city ID. I don't know why it's closing it up. I've experienced that problem before. It's SQL Yog. I don't know if it's my version of SQL Yog that is an issue. So I've experienced that problem before. So I'll come back to schema, add tables. I've not selected database yet, so I'll come and pick Expedia. Then I'll come and add tables, add them. Then I'll try to, just say this city and this city. Well, okay, since it seems to be breaking, but that's the general idea on how you create them. And by the way, I don't like that approach, but I just want to show you that it's possible to actually create all your tables. Then you can create your relationships once you're done. So I'll just use the older method that we were using. Let me just admit these ones. Next time, I think if I tell you to come at 10 sharp, if you come past 10:10, I'll not admit you. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll just come back to my tables. I'll come back to my airports table. I'll say alter. Then I'll just come to the relationships, the foreign keys here, and I'll say this city ID relates to the cities table, and of course it will pick cities ID. When I save that, it will automatically create that relationship. So even if I was to come back and check here, you will see that all the relationships are there. Okay, you can see all the relationships are actually there. So I prefer that first method, even though you can still come here and drag and drop. Well, sometimes these tools give you errors, but however you create it, that's what's important. So for now, I have created. So for now, I have created my three tables, and I've created relationships between them. Okay. So now, let's go ahead and see. Of course, you're going to do this process for all the tables you have within your database. I'm going to do this outside the screen recording because we'll use them in the future. But I just wanted to show you exactly how you achieve it using this tool. So you can go ahead and now create all your other tables. Then you can create all the relationships. Okay. Then once we have created our tables, we need to be able to manipulate data inside these tables. And this is going to be this is going to be at least 70% of the database um, tasks that you're going to do. So I'm going to show you how to create what we call stored procedures. They are basically the way you write your SQL statement, but then you store them inside your database so that you don't have to repeat them all over again. They come with several advantages. So for stored procedures, they come with several advantages. So stored procedures and functions. So I want to write logic written inside the database. I know you're used to writing logic inside your either PHP or those who are using Python or Ruby on Rails or any server side tool, you or even Node. I don't like the idea because then it means that your application is tightly coupled. Tightly coupled means if I want to change the front end or the back end or the web server, then it means I'm locked to the programming language I used because all the instructions are written inside PHP. If I'm to select data, it is written inside PHP and so on and so forth. I don't want that. I want to write my program in such a way that PHP is just going to come to my database, call the function or the procedure, give the parameters, and the procedure will do its own thing, okay, independently. So that's why I want us to write it like that. So these are logic that is written inside your database, inside the RDBMS, the relational database management system. So you write logic inside the RDBMS. So it means that if you are to change your platform from Ruby to Python, you don't change anything concerning how data is fetched or how data is managed. You simply change the language and you call the procedure, and that is it. So I'm going to show us how to do this, then how you're actually going to call them to see how they work. Okay. So I have, let's start with countries. I want to add country. So if I want to add country, what I will do, I'll come to this stored procedure over here. By the way, I don't need to come to this stored procedure and create it. I can simply come to queries here and say create procedure. Then I give the procedure name. Okay, like maybe something like SP save country, right? Then of course I'll give it all the variables I need to give it. Then I'll have a begin here and an end. So all my logic is going to go inside here. Okay, so logic goes here. Now, this is how you put a comment in SQL. By the way, you've learned SQL. This is now an advanced level of SQL. How we actually use SQL in practice. I know you have used it writing a few instructions outside your database and stuff like that, but now I want to show us exactly how we use it in a practical application. So this is how you'd write it. So create procedure, the name of the procedure, you can have variables here, maybe something like country ID. Usually I like starting with dollar sign. Country ID, you give the data type, then you give country name, then you give it a data type also. So you write like that. Then from inside here, now I can be able to write my logic. So what would happen here? Now you can see inside here, I can make some very nice logic. I can say if the country name exists, don't add it because I only expect a country to exist once, right? So if a country exists once, if Kenya is already added and somebody is trying to add Kenya again, don't recreate Kenya. But you see, if I needed to do that inside my programming logic like Ruby and all that, I'll have to come check into the database, give the feedback back. Then it's when I actually implement the saving of the data, which is actually two round trips to the database, totally unnecessary. So with such procedures and functions, they give you several advantages, which we're going to discuss later on. But let's see how to write them first. So the logic here would be something like, I can write this logic something like insert into my table called countries. Then I'll put the values that I want. By the way, the columns are optional if you're going to match them one to one, but I like listing them for purposes of uh, user friendly. So in this case, the country ID is automatic, so I don't need to start it. But the country name is something I provide. Then I'll simply come here and say country name, something of the sort, right? Something like that. Now this would work, and I can actually remove this. So I can write it like this: create procedure, save country, like that. Then begin. Then I put my logic, and always you make sure you end up you finish with a semicolon. Every statement has to be terminated with a semicolon. So I'm inserting into a table called countries. I'm picking this column country name, and I'm inserting the value country name, which is the variable that I'm going to provide. So I can run this. Yeah, it has two errors because um, I needed to, since I'm going to execute multiple instructions, I needed to tell it exactly how to start and which delimiter to use. So that's why I don't like using this method a lot. So what I would do is I would right click here, I would say create new stored procedure and give it a name, sp save country. Now this is just a template that fills in for me the things that I need to have. So this is what I didn't provide, and this one over here. So these are the two things that I forgot. The limiter over here, then this dollar sign. So I need to provide this delimiter. So I'm just trying to show you how it is a bit crazy sometimes to do this thing by hand rather than using a tool. So you finish this delimiter here like that. Then you return it back to what it's supposed to be. So you can say delimiter here, delimiter, delimiter. Then you can now give it semicolon. So in short, because I'm going to execute a lot of instructions over here, I want to change the delimiter from semicolon to dollar sign. So only when the dollar sign is encountered here, it means that I've finished executing, because here I can write as many instructions as possible as you're going to see. Okay, so if I write it like that, then I execute it, you can see now it has saved successfully. Okay, because I didn't provide this, and I didn't stop it, and I didn't return back the delimiter to semicolon, which is what it expects. So now if we come to stored procedure over here, you can see I have one stored procedure. Then now how do we use it? So what I could do is I could create a new query over here, create a new query editor. Then I just need to say call. Then I double click the name of the stored procedure, it comes here. Then I open bracket and I put my variable, Kenya, as a country. Okay. Then once I do that and I click on this, you can see it tells me it has been executed successfully. So when I come back to my country and I open the table, you can see I have one country called Kenya automatically. And I can repeat that process all over again. I can say Uganda, Tanzania. Now you get the logic. I don't need to repeat writing this instruction over and over again. So I've inserted three countries. So when I come here and I refresh, you can see I have Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania as countries. So what's important is I have created a stored procedure, and I've told the stored procedure what to do. Now, the only problem with this stored procedure, if I come back here and say Kenya again and run it, you can see it has actually added Kenya twice. So Kenya is appearing twice. Now that's where I wanted to now bring us to the element where now we can actually write logic and check for some conditions before we actually perform some actions. So what I will do here, under save country here, actually I'm seeing that I even misspelled the name of the stored procedure. I've written save county instead of country. So what I can do here, I can come and modify it correctly and say save country. Then I have country name. Then of course I can have here country. Well, let me just put the country name first. Let me assume that you just want to insert. So what I can do here is I can say if exists, select all fields from countries where country name here is equals to country name. Then actually it should be not, if not exists. So if it does not exist, then do this. Then of course I'll say and if, like that. So you can see now I've gone ahead and introduced logic inside my stored procedure. So what my stored procedure, if I want to save a country, what it will do is it will check if the country, if this statement returns true. This statement return true, it will go to the table called countries, where the country name is the same as the variable I provided. If this statement returns true, I'll check if actually it's the reverse, which means it does not exist, it has returned false. That's why I put the not here. So if this statement returns false, then I will insert. So I will run that, check down here that there are no errors. So no errors, everything is fine. Then I can come back to my query here and try to add Kenya again. Click, you can see save county does not exist. It should have been save country. I have changed it to save country, like that. That's the new name now. So I'll run that. You can see no row has been affected, even though it has been executed successfully. So if I put Kenya, come back to my countries, it does not add it again. Let me try to put Uganda. Uganda exists, so I'll run it. You can still see no row has been affected. And if I come back to my table still, Uganda has not been inserted. So you can see now where we're coming with in terms of now doing proper logic as far as your database is concerned. This is the regular SQL you're used to writing. I'm just trying to now show you how you could actually use it in a practical relational database management system. Okay. So again, if I put something like Sudan here, you can see Sudan has been added. Now, if I put Rwanda, you can see Rwanda has also been added. So if I come back to my country, then I have Sudan and Rwanda added. So this now tells you exactly how the logic works. And the good thing is that once I've written it like that, every time I want to execute it, regardless of the platform that I'm going to use it, I just need to give this statement and give my variable. However, I'm going to be collecting my variable, that's going to be up to me. But at the end of the day, I simply need to say call, then I specify the name of the stored procedure, then I can be able to specify all the other parameters that I want. Then MySQL as a database engine will do the work on its own. You can see over here, it will validate if the country does not exist. Only when the country does not exist is when it will actually add it inside my database. Are we together up to that point? I had some people wanted, okay, they've been admitted, right? Are we okay up to that point? I hope I am communicating. You can talk or you can chat. That's why sometimes I don't like these virtual classes because I'm not seeing your reaction. So Alex says that's fine. Okay, that's okay. All right, excellent. So now let's go ahead and this one is saving the country. Now I would like to modify this so that it looks much better. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to drop it, which means I'm going to delete it from my database, and I'm going to close this. I'm going to show you practically how I would want to achieve this. So I'll also close these other ones. They're too much, they're a bit too much on my screen. So I'm going to close this, and I'm also going to close this. So I'm also going to close this. So I'm going to come here, say I can create a new procedure. Actually, I like using this shortcut, but as I said, you can simply open a new query window, which means you come to uh, File, New Query window, New Query Editor, or you can click this. There's an icon here for New Query Editor, this plus. You can just click on this plus, New Query Editor. So if you're using SQL Yog like me. So we were supposed to start with, um, well, I don't like remembering syntax anyway. So I'll simply say sp save country, save country, like that. Then I'll remove these comments I can remove, I don't need them, and these other comments I can remove. So you can see it has already given me a template for creating a stored procedure. The only thing I need to fill in is the details. So I'll need the country ID, which is integer, and I'll need country name, which is variable character. So you can see two I have two variables, the country ID and the country name. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to say if the country ID is 0, so it means I'm trying to add a new element. Otherwise, then I'll put the rest here. So you can see now I'm trying to build logic. If the country ID provided is 0, it means I want to insert a new record. So for me to insert, I'll simply say if not. So I'll do another separate check. If not exists, select all fields from countries where country name, you can actually, for the column name, for column names, you just double click, they'll be brought to the screen. Then it helps you in terms of typing and being accurate by referencing the correct table names and column names. So if this is the case, then we can do the insert. Then you can see I also have an end here. So here I'll simply say insert into countries. Then I'll supply the values here. So this one, for this one is a good thing because I only have one name, that is that. Then here I'll now put the country name, country name like that. Now, what if the other condition is true? What if country ID is not 0? Because I've said if country ID is 0, it's only when you're executing this. And always remember to put semicolons at the end of each statement. So each end if must have a semicolon. So if the country ID is 0, if and the country does not exist, by the way, I could have used and up here. It will still have been able to work, but let me just have it like that. Um, Here, if the country ID is anything other than a 0, it means that the country exists and I want to update it. So what I'll do here is I'll say update these countries. Then I'll say set country name is equals to country name where the country ID is equals to the country ID. So this is a very clever way of doing two things with one statement. So in short, I'm trying to say if the country ID is 0, insert. If the country ID is not 0, update the country ID that has been specified. So I can use this one stored procedure to create a new country or to update the one that is existing, right? So that is how now this is now technically how you use SQL in real life applications, how you actually write your queries so that now you take the SQL that you know, you take the RDBMS. I believe you learned one RDBMS, whether it was Oracle, MySQL, SQL Server, somehow you learned one of it. Then you put them together to come up with now a practical program. So I will save this, then I will demonstrate how it works. So usually you down here and you want to confirm that it was successful. Okay, you want to confirm that it was successful. Warnings are not bad, but if it doesn't have error, if it has errors, just make sure you fix those errors before you go. So again, I'll open a new stored procedure here and I'll say call save country sp save country. Then I'll give the variables 0 and maybe say Angola. So if I put 0 and Angola, because the first parameter is 0, and we said if it is 0 and it does not exist, then insert it. So I'll run it, and you can see it has one error. It's telling me near to use 0. Well, I think it's because I highlighted that, so click that. Don't highlight, make sure nothing is highlighted. Otherwise, I had highlighted this, that's why it gave me the error. That's why it gave me the error. Otherwise, make sure everything something not highlighted, or you highlight the entire statement. If you have to highlight the entire statement, run it. I know it's not going to create it because it already exists. So when I come to countries here and I run, you can see now I've added Angola. Let's update this Kenya to read Ethiopia. So this is 4. I want this to be updated to Ethiopia. So I'll come here and I'll say 4, then Ethiopia. So it means it's going to, because this is not 0, it will update where the ID is 4 to this value over here. Again, make sure nothing is highlighted, run it, come back to my table, refresh. You can refresh by clicking here. So you can see now it has updated to Ethiopia. Okay. So this is what we're going to be doing moving forward. So we're going to be writing stored procedures and functions and triggers and events and views. And they're going to do completely different things, but you start to get the idea now. How to save data is not independent on what I'm going to use. Whether I'm going to use Node, I'm going to use Ruby, I'm going to use Python, I'm going to use Perl or even .NET or even PHP. It won't matter what backend language I'm going to use. What simply it means that I just need to say call, then I'll give the name of my stored procedure, then I'll give the variables, however I'm collecting the variables, then the database will be able to do it on its own, independent of the backend that you're using. Okay, so that is how to save. Then how do we get countries? So again, I can come here, right click. Well, I can write it manually like this. I can say delimiter, then you put dollar sign, then you can say create procedure, sp get countries. It does not have variables, so I'll go to begin straight away and end, which I will end the delimiter, then I'll reset the delimiter back. Delimiter, not me, to semicolon like that. So that is generally what that template was doing for us with a lot of comments in between. So you can save this one as a template. So every time you want to write a new one, the only thing you do is change the name of the stored procedure, add the variables, then provide your logic in between. But generally, in MySQL, this is going to be the structure on how we can do that. Now we're using the limiter here because inside here we can have as many instructions as possible. As you've seen here, I have this part of instruction, this part of instruction, this part of instruction, this part of instruction. So they are quite a number of instructions in between, each of them being terminated by a semicolon. So that's why I have this delimiter up here. And then once I'm done, I return it with to semicolon back to normal. Okay, that's just basically it. Now let's get countries. So to get countries, I'll simply say select all fields from countries. Then I can arrange them order by country name, for example. Semicolon. I execute this. It is successful. So when I come back here and I refresh this, you'll see now I have get countries. So if I wanted to get the countries, I'll simply come, maybe open a new query here for testing, and I'll say call sp get countries. As simple as that. So you can see this now gives me the advantage. When I run it, it gives me all the countries arranged alphabetically. As simple as that. So I don't need to focus so much on how I'm going to do to escape strings in PHP or whichever language I'm using and all those shenanigans. The database will do this for me. We're going to discuss the advantages of stored procedures in a moment. So let's just see how to go about them. Okay. So how about if you wanted to delete a country? So if I wanted to delete a country, I'll simply come again. Well, because we are learning, I'll simply say delimiter. I usually don't do this in practice. I use a template sp delete country, country, country. Oh my goodness, ry. Okay, so I'll need to provide the country ID to be deleted, right? This is integer. Then I'll do a begin, an end. Then I'll return back my delimiter to semicolon. To semicolon, like that. To semicolon, sorry. So here is when this is where I'm going to provide my logic. So I'll simply say here, from here, I'll say delete from countries where country ID is equals to the country ID that I have provided. Then I put my semicolon and I save that. Check is successful. So let's say, for example, we want to delete Angola, number 7. It's not East African country, we want to delete Angola. So what I can do is come here and I'll simply say call sp delete country, and the country I want to delete is ID number 7. So I do that and I highlight because I want to execute this one. Now that I have two statements, I want to execute only one. So I highlight the one that I want to execute, then I simply say execute. So you can see one row is affected. So when I come back to this and I refresh, now Angola is not there. So now you get the gist. And of course, if I refresh this page over here, I'm going to see now I have the third procedure, which is delete country. So you can see all these things now when I store them inside my database, I don't need to repeat or to write them later on into the future. Unless I need to modify it, then I can just come and modify it, maybe to add parameters, maybe to change the logic. But basically, they become almost part of your actually not almost, they become part of your program. Now, what are the advantages of using stored procedure? You can see you can insert, you can update, you can delete, and you can also select. So in short, when it comes to CRUD operations, you can be able to use stored procedures for CRUD operations. That is create, read, update, and delete. So create and read, I've used create and update, I have used one. So there is insert and there is update. So I've used one statement for two of them for the two CRUD operations. Then for the read, we have seen select, which is here, get countries, and then of course for delete, we have seen delete country over here. So the CRUD operations are well handled within, can be well handled within stored procedures. Now, what are the advantages of using stored procedures? So advantages of using stored procedures. One, of course, is scalability, which means they are not tightly coupled with your backend. With your backend. So it's not tightly coupled with your backend. Number two, security. So security, what it means is that when I'm defining these stored procedures, let me just try to modify one. You will see that it has added a user and a server. So it means that this user is the one who is able to execute this stored procedure. So if there was a security breach and I change the user or I change the password of the user, then nobody can be able to execute these statements. So that makes our application very, very secure. Okay, so that's the other advantage of stored procedures. So security. Then number three is, of course, speed. Now, what happens is whenever you run a stored procedure for the first time, what the database does is it creates an execution plan. So it creates an execution plan. So it tells you exactly how it's going to use indexes, how it's going to fetch data, how it's going to sort the data. So it already knows in advance what you are going to do by executing that stored procedure. So it knows that I'm supposed to pick the data from table one, from table two, from table three, join them by this field, sort them by this, and so forth and so forth. Then that makes it very super fast in terms of fetching or retrieving data, as opposed to just giving the database some instruction, then it tries to figure out exactly what you're trying to execute. Oh, this wants me to select data from this. Again, they want to filter data from this. Again, then so it's going to be doing that process over and over again. With stored procedures, it creates an execution plan. It knows exactly what the stored procedure does, which table it picks data from, how these things are connected, and so forth and so forth. Okay. Um, the other advantage of stored procedure, of course, again, is ease of debugging. You can see when I write my code with a stored procedure, it becomes very, very easy to debug. I can easily read the statement and I'm able to tell exactly where the issue is. By the way, when it comes to security, um, there's something called SQL injection, which, if time allows, we're going to look at. It takes care of SQL injection because every time anything we pass on the stored procedure is actually a variable. So if I come to like delete country, anything that I pass here is just a variable. Whatever I'm going to pass is going to be treated as an integer. So this is not going to execute as statement inside here. It is going to be treated as a variable. And those are the kind of things that now make it start looking very, very nice. Okay. Can I think of any other advantage of stored procedures besides scalability, security, speed, and ease of debugging? Well, at the moment, I don't have any. But as you can see, we can go on and on. Rather than writing the statements directly inside our backend application, we can actually do it inside our database. Now, what I would want you to do is, because I have shown you how to write these CRUD operations, I want you to do CRUD operation for all the entities in your database. So in short, you will create um, uh, stored procedures for adding city, for adding airlines, for adding airports, for adding flight bookings, and all the entities that you had within your database. That is what is going to be your assignment until the next class. Now, these assignments are piling up, and most of you are not taking this thing seriously. This is the only thing I'm going to use to mark your exam. So if you don't give me the assignments, then I have nothing to mark. And if I have nothing to mark, I have no marks to give you. So try as much as possible. If we say that the assignment is due before the next class, make sure that you have that assignment and submitted it before the next class. Are we together up to that point? Now I can still hear some people are trying to join the class and it has already ended. So I don't know the reason why they want to join. But I have recorded this particular presentation. I will make it available for you so that you can be able to review how we can be able to create tables, create relationships, and how to write SQL statements for CRUD operations as far as our entities are concerned. That was the agenda for today. And the class rep, please remind. Okay, now I know that you have classes on Mondays and Wednesdays. If there is any other, just tell me on time. Don't tell me at 9:30 that we have a class that was starting at 9. I mean, it's very difficult for me to get organized in that arrangement. Okay. So again, not just the classroom, but any person within the class, you can gently remind me. Sometimes I'm too busy and preoccupied with things. You can gently remind me that we have a class or something of the sort. Then I can be able to see how to assist. Now, I'll give us an opportunity to ask for any questions that we may have. Then, if there is no question, then I think I'll leave it at that. I will make the video available on YouTube probably in about 30 minutes time. Then you can be able to review it at your own convenience in case there is something that you didn't understand with this particular presentation. Any question, you can type in the box, you can enable your mic, or you can raise your hand so that now I can answer those questions before I move to the next class. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Alex.
first. Good morning.
Morning to you too.
Yeah, so I have a question.
Okay.
So concerning on the tools you have told us to install.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say if you have MySQL Workbench,
Mm-hmm.
so you need to also install XAMPP and also install the SQL log.
No, they are the same. They are the same thing. So I said if you install XAMPP, um, it will install Apache, MySQL, and PHP, and it will install PHP as a tool. So you can actually use MySQL directly from the command line, which I would highly not advise. You can also use PHP to access MySQL. That's why I demonstrated how I can create a table using PHP and how to add columns to it. But then I said, if you have another tool like either Workbench or SQL these are MySQL clients. They make the experience much better in terms of managing the database itself. As you can see, this tool is so easy when it comes to creating tables, relationships, stored procedures, and so forth and so forth. It is super easy to use as opposed to if I wanted to use PHP. By the way, I can still execute these statements on PHP. So let me just show you. So if I came here and say get countries like this and copy this statement and log into PHP. So localhost, I don't know if I'd opened it here, but PHP is here. So if I pick my database here, which is Expedia Flight Booking, so you can see whatever I created on the other side, I can see on this other side. Okay. So when I come to SQL here and I paste that, I can actually write it called SP get countries like that. If I come and say go, you can see it, well, it just executes it, as you can see over there, right? So the tool doesn't matter because whatever it is that it is available inside the database has already been taken care of. If I come to stop procedures over here, you'll see all the procedures I created are actually here. Save country, get countries, and delete country. And I can actually create one from here anyway if I need to. Only that you can see this is a bit too difficult compared to the one that I use on this other side, which is just right clicking and say create new stored procedure, and I say SP test, and it starts by filling in the data for me. So I only need to remove the comments, then I am good to go. So when it comes to tooling, it's all about the efficiency in using them, but you don't need to install all of them. You can actually install all of them, but you don't need to just install one. You can install Workbench, you can install SQL, you can install PHP or any other PHP or any other MySQL client that is there. But that is not what's important. What's important is just pick one, then use that one. Ni kama kutumia word processor. You can use Word, you can use Google Docs, you can use LibreOffice, you can use any Word document that you're comfortable with. But at the end of the day, all of them are going to allow you to have some space. You can type some text, then you can be able to format that text as you move along. Okay, so you don't need to install any. You cannot don't install all the tools that I've mentioned, but it would certainly be much easier for you to use something like SQL or Workbench to be able to be faster in terms of generating your statements or your queries. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other question? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands up. I'm not seeing any mic on. I'm not seeing anything on the chat. So I want to believe. Okay, somebody is asking Crispin Wamenyo. Well, what's that? I don't know. Okay, I'm not sure about that. Shakespeare, I will get the recordings. I'll give them to the class rep. They'll share with you. So Greyhood Clinton says we appreciate you uploading the video forever. Yeah, I will definitely do that. So since there's no other question, I think I'll take a leave at that. Then probably we'll meet again on Monday. I have received the assignment for Monday from very few of you, and I've already given feedback for those who have written to me. So you have feedback. You rest assured that I have read your work and I've given my take on how your design was looking like. So in the event that you need to make any corrections, please do. All right. So I will stop this. I'll stop at this. Then maybe when you come back, we'll see how to go about it. All right. Thank you and have a wonderful afternoon.